He promises her his inheritance, but she is shocked when she sees what she receives. Hello, welcome. Enjoy, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Valentin, an elderly and wealthy man, felt lonely despite the vast fortune he had accumulated in his bank account. Despite his wealth, he longed for the closeness of his family, who remained distant. One day, he met Tony, a 21-year-old woman, and promised her a share of his inheritance. However, when the will was revealed, she couldn't believe what was written. In a grand mansion located in the city's most exclusive neighborhood lived Mr. Valentin, a 75-year-old man with a discreet presence but a rich history. Widowed for over a decade, Valentin lived in a house that was once filled with laughter and voices but now echoed only with the memories of his past. His wife, an heiress from one of the country's wealthiest families, had not only left him a considerable fortune but also a void that was hard to fill. Valentin, with his silver hair and still vivid eyes, kept a significant portion of his fortune a secret, even from his own children. He had 5 children, all successful in their own lives, yet distant from him. Rarely did they visit, consumed by their careers and families, leaving Valentin in increasingly profound solitude. He longed for the days when his house was filled with his children running through the halls and family meals around the grand dining table. Now, he relied on the daily presence of his loyal housekeeper, Martha, and his talented cook, Ellen. These women were more than employees; in many ways, they were his surrogate family. Martha, with her robust figure and warm smile, came every morning to keep the house in order. She knew every corner, every piece of furniture, every secret hidden in old drawers. Ellen, on the other hand, was a soft-spoken woman with skilled hands, preparing Valentin's favorite dishes and offering him comfort through food. Despite their care, the loneliness persisted. Valentin often spent hours in his study, surrounded by photographs of his late wife and children at different stages of their lives. He would try calling his children to connect with them, but he mostly encountered the cold indifference of voicemail. In contrast, his grandson Maxi was a brilliant exception. Young, dynamic, and always busy with university and work, Maxi never forgot about his grandfather. He always found time to call him, check on him, listen to his stories, and share snippets of his own life. Maxi's presence was a beacon of light in Valentin's lonely days. Maxi genuinely cared about his grandfather's stories, the golden days of the family, their challenges and triumphs, and even the little things in daily life. He was a curious and kind young man who saw his grandfather as a source of wisdom and inspiration. Yet, something troubled Valentin, the magnitude of his hidden fortune. He feared that if his children discovered the true extent of his wealth, they would approach him only out of self-interest. He wanted to believe that love and closeness couldn't be bought, so he kept silent, protecting not only his fortune but also the essence of his family relationships. Deep in his heart, Valentin dreamed of a family reunion. He dreamed of his house once again filled with laughter and lively conversations, with the family gathered around the table. He dreamed of feeling the warmth of his children's and grandchildren's embraces, not out of obligation but out of true, unconditional love. While waiting for that day, he held on to the small joys that remained, such as Maxi's occasional visits, Martha and Ellen's dedicated care, and the memories he cherished. Despite his loneliness, Valentin didn't succumb to despair. He maintained a disciplined routine, ate well, nurtured his personal interests, and always sought connection with the outside world. Valentin frequently attended classical music concerts, finding temporary solace in the beauty of the notes and the harmony of the melodies. He also devoted himself to reading, losing himself in fictional worlds that transported him beyond the walls of his lonely home. However, it was during the quietest moments that the loneliness was most present, resonating in the empty hallways and the walls that housed more memories than he could bear. During these hours, he sought refuge in his study, where photographs of his family silently watched over him. He gazed at the smiling faces of his children when they were little, trying to find answers for the inexplicable distance between them. Despite everything, Valentin never lost hope. The flame of family still burned in his heart, warming him on the coldest nights. He believed that one day the love that bound his family would be strong enough to overcome any distance. Until that day came, he clung to the comforting presence of Maxi, his beloved grandson, who, despite his busy life, always found time to be by his side. Maxi was his anchor in the world, his living hope that family love could overcome all adversities. A new day had begun when, suddenly, misfortune knocked on Valentin's door. On a morning like any other, he headed to the bathroom after his usual walk. As he stepped out of the shower, a slip caused him to lose his balance and fall onto the cold floor. The impact was brutal, and he felt a sharp pain in his left leg. Ellen, the devoted cook, heard the loud thud and ran to help him. With care and concern, she helped him up, but it was clear something was wrong. Valentin felt a searing, unbearable pain in his ankle, and even the thought of moving seemed impossible. With a worried look, Ellen helped him sit down and immediately called an ambulance. At the hospital, Valentin underwent a series of tests. The diagnosis was not as severe as he initially feared, he had only sprained his ankle. Even so, the fall and the pain were a painful reminder of his fragility, both physical and emotional. With a heavy heart, Valentin decided to inform his family about what had happened. He called each of his children, trying to mask the worry in his voice. However, the responses he received were cold and indifferent. Some barely paid attention to the news, while others muttered a few words of comfort before returning to their busy lives. Valentin felt abandoned and helpless. The loneliness that enveloped him was almost palpable, as if it were slowly suffocating him. He wondered what he had done wrong and why his own children seemed so distant and indifferent. The physical pain now mingled with emotional pain, forming an unbearable burden on his tired shoulders. That same afternoon, the door to Valentin's hospital room opened, and Maxi entered in a rush. His face was pale, and his eyes reflected genuine concern. He had left work and all his commitments behind as soon as he received the news and rushed to see his grandfather. Seeing Valentin lying in bed with a tired expression, Maxi quickly approached and took his hand. "Grandpa, how are you? Are you in a lot of pain? Do you need anything?" Maxi asked, his voice filled with anxiety. Valentin managed to muster a calm smile despite the pain in his ankle and the weight of loneliness that accompanied him. "I'm fine, my boy. It was just a scare. My ankle hurts a bit, but the doctors have given me something for the pain. I'll be better soon." Maxi sighed in relief but couldn't help noticing the sadness in his grandfather's eyes. "I'll stay with you tonight. Don't worry about anything. I'll take care of everything." Maxi's presence brought immense comfort to Valentin, making him feel cared for and loved. That night, the young grandson settled into a chair beside the bed, refusing to leave even when the nurses insisted he should rest at home. Maxi's dedication was a source of joy for Valentin, a reminder that someone truly cared for him. As Maxi dozed off in his makeshift chair, Valentin spent the night reflecting. The pain in his ankle was a constant discomfort, but it was nothing compared to the emotional pain he felt over his children's absence. He remembered the times he had made sacrifices to ensure they never lacked anything, along with the affection and love he gave them. Now, however, he felt abandoned, as if all those efforts meant nothing. There, in that uncomfortable chair, Maxi represented everything worth fighting for. He was the living proof that love still existed, even if it could only be found in one member of the family. Valentin knew he couldn't change the past or his children's attitudes, but he could cherish and nurture the special relationship he had with Maxi. The night at the hospital was long and lonely for Valentin. Maxi slept in the chair beside him, while Valentin kept his gaze fixed on the door, hoping that one of his other children might appear. He longed to see a familiar face and hear a comforting voice, but the night passed, and the door remained closed, with no one else entering. In a moment of weakness, Valentin allowed a few tears to escape, feeling the weight of solitude and rejection. Then, as he looked at Maxi sleeping uncomfortably in the chair, he wiped his tears away and found strength in his gratitude. From that day forward, Valentin decided he would not let his children's absence defeat him. Instead, he focused on the good things he still had in his life, a wonderful and devoted grandson who loved him sincerely. Maxi's presence was a precious gift, and Valentin promised himself he would treasure every moment with his grandson. The next morning, the doctor entered the room with a professional yet friendly demeanor. "Mr. Valentin, I have good news, you're ready to go home, but your ankle will need physical therapy for a full recovery." Valentin nodded, relieved to return to the comfort of his home. Maxi quickly stood up, ready to help his grandfather. "Let's go, Grandpa. I'll take care of everything." Maxi handled the discharge paperwork and carefully helped Valentin dress and prepare to leave. Together, they left the hospital and returned to the grand house Valentin called home. Upon their arrival, Martha and Ellen were waiting at the door, both anxious and relieved to see him. "Thank God you're all right, Mr. Valentin," exclaimed Martha, while Ellen, with tears in her eyes, gently hugged him. Valentin smiled at his two loyal employees and friends. "Thank you, ladies. I'm better thanks to both of you and Maxi." Maxi helped Valentin settle into his favorite armchair in the living room. The exhaustion from the previous night weighed on both of them, but there was a palpable sense of relief in the air. They knew the recovery process would be slow, but they were determined to face it together. In the following days, Valentin began his recovery with the constant support of Maxi, Martha, and Ellen. Although the physical therapy sessions were scheduled for the following week, each day was a step toward his goal, and every small improvement was celebrated. Maxi stayed by his grandfather's side every day, helping him with everything he needed. Amid the daily care, Valentin and Maxi strengthened their bond even further. They spent hours talking, sharing stories, and laughing. Valentin taught Maxi family secrets and the life lessons he had learned over the years, while Maxi, in turn, brought new perspectives and energy into Valentin's life. A few days after the accident, Maxi decided to take some time off work to care for his grandfather. At first, Valentin protested, insisting he didn't want to disrupt Maxi's busy life, but Maxi, smiling stubbornly, reassured him. "Grandpa, I want to be here. This is important to me." Moved by Maxi's dedication, Valentin relented and allowed him to stay at the house for a few days. The following week, Valentin needed to handle some financial matters. Always willing to help, Maxi offered to go to the bank on his behalf. Trusting his grandson completely, Valentin gave him his bank password and explained what needed to be done. Maxi took the documents and headed to the bank, determined to assist his grandfather however he could. When Maxi accessed Valentin's account at the bank, he was astonished by what he saw. The account balance was astronomical, far beyond anything he had imagined. He knew his grandfather lived comfortably, but he had no idea of the true magnitude of his fortune. The amount was staggering, a sum that could change anyone's life. Maxi felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, he was impressed and a bit confused, on the other, he felt an even greater responsibility to care for his grandfather. He knew that with such a large sum of money came risks, and it was necessary to protect Valentin from anyone with bad intentions. Maxi resolved the bank matters as his grandfather had requested and returned home with the documents in order, but with a growing concern on his mind. When he arrived home, he found Valentin sitting in the living room, reading a book. His grandfather looked up and smiled as Maxi walked in. "Did you manage to sort everything out, boy?" Maxi nodded but couldn't hide the unease in his expression. "Yes, Grandpa, everything is in order, but I was surprised to see the balance in your account. I didn't know you had so much money." Valentin sighed and closed the book, resting it on his lap. "I never wanted you or your uncles to know the true extent of my fortune. Your grandmother, may she rest in peace, was an heiress to one of the wealthiest families in the country. When she passed away, she left me a large sum, along with properties and jewelry. I thought that if your uncles knew about it, they would grow even more distant, thinking only of the money. I wanted them to come closer out of love, not interest. Maxi sat next to his grandfather, taking his hand. I understand, Grandpa, and I know you did what you thought was best. But I also think it's important to protect what you've built, especially now. You're not alone, I'm here to help you. Valentin smiled, squeezing his grandson's hand with gratitude. Thank you, Maxi. I trust you more than anyone. Knowing you're by my side gives me a peace I haven't felt in a long time. The next day, early in the morning, Valentin would begin his physical therapy sessions to fully recover his ankle. Very early, a 21-year-old physiotherapist named Elena arrived, her warm smile and contagious energy lighting up the room. She greeted Valentin with a firm handshake and began the therapy session with attention and dedication, quickly earning the old man's trust. We'll start slowly, all right? I want to make sure you feel comfortable and safe, Elena said after introducing herself. Valentin nodded, feeling immediately at ease with the young woman. During the session, Elena chatted enthusiastically, asking him about his life, experiences, and stories. She showed a genuine interest in what Valentin shared, which encouraged him to open up and talk about some of the most significant moments of his life. Between exercises and stretches, he spoke about his youth, how he met his late wife, and the joys and challenges of raising his children. You have a beautiful home, Mr. Valentin, Elena remarked during a pause. I really like the decor, it's so cozy and elegant. Valentin smiled with pride. Thank you, Elena. My wife had refined taste, she handled every detail. Now, this house is a constant reminder of her love and dedication. In the days that followed, Elena returned for more physical therapy sessions, and with each visit, their relationship grew stronger. Elena made sure to ask about Valentin's interests, passions, and dreams, and Valentin, in turn, appreciated her company in the opportunity to share his stories and wisdom. Mr. Valentin, have you ever thought about writing a book about your life? Your stories are fascinating, Elena suggested during one of the sessions. Valentin laughed, shaking his head. I've never thought about it, but it's an interesting idea. Who knows? Maybe someday, with your help, I can put those stories on paper. Elena smiled. I'd love to help, and I'm sure many people would find inspiration in your story. The physical therapy sessions became a highlight of Valentin's days, not only because of the physical improvement he was experiencing but also because of the bond he was forming with Elena. She brought a new light into his routine, something he hadn't realized he was missing until that moment. Maxi also noticed the change in his grandfather's demeanor. Grandpa, I can see that the physical therapy is doing you good, and it seems you found a great friend in Elena. Valentin smiled at his grandson. Yes, Maxi, Elena is a charming young woman. She reminds me that there's still so much to live for, so much to fight for. Her visits are a true relief for my lonely soul. With Maxi's constant support and Elena's dedicated care, Valentin began to see his life through new eyes. He realized that despite the absences and sorrows of the past, there was still much to live for and share. He decided to make the most of every moment, appreciating the small joys and the new friendships that were forming. The days continued to pass, and Valentin gradually recovered. With each session, Elena encouraged him to take another step and achieve new goals. With every small victory, Valentin felt stronger, not just physically but emotionally as well. After several sessions, Valentin noticed a special sparkle in Elena's eyes, one that went beyond mere professional concern. One day, at the end of a session, she surprised him with an unexpected invitation. Mr. Valentin, would you like to have dinner with me tonight? Elena asked with a soft smile. Valentin was taken aback, raising his eyebrows in surprise. Me? An old man like me? Why would a young woman like you want to go out with me? He asked, genuinely confused, feeling unsure about Elena's true intentions. Elena smiled even more, her gaze full of understanding and tenderness. The body ages, but the spirit always stays young, Mr. Valentin. You have a vibrant soul, full of stories and wisdom. I would love to spend time with you outside the professional environment. Let's give happiness a chance. Valentin was moved by the sincerity of her words. He had never considered such a possibility, but after a brief hesitation, he felt comforted by Elena's kindness and invitation. All right, Elena, I accept your invitation. That evening, they went to a cozy restaurant. Valentin wore an elegant suit he hadn't donned in a long time, while Elena dazzled in a simple yet graceful dress. During dinner, the conversation flowed naturally. They laughed, shared stories, and discovered a genuine connection. Valentin felt rejuvenated by Elena's company, and she, in turn, appreciated his wisdom and charm. As time passed, their meetings became more frequent, and dinners together became a routine. Valentin started buying clothes not only for himself but also for Elena, as a gesture of affection and appreciation. They developed a deep bond, sharing secrets and dreams. Elena found in Valentin an inexhaustible source of stories and learning, while he delighted in her energy and vitality. One day, while walking in the park, Elena took Valentin's hand and looked into his eyes. Valentin, I want you to know that what I feel for you is real. It's not just admiration or respect, it's something deeper. Valentin squeezed her hand, feeling a surge of emotion. Elena, I feel something very special for you as well. You've brought a new light to my life, something I never expected to find at this stage. Despite the deep intimacy they shared, Valentin never revealed the true extent of his fortune to Elena. He wanted the relationship to be based on genuine feelings, not on money. He continued to live modestly, hiding his true financial situation. As the relationship between Valentin and Elena blossomed, she eventually moved into his house. Valentin felt radiant with her presence, rejuvenated and filled with happiness. However, Elena's move did not go unnoticed by Valentin's children, who began questioning her intentions. One by one, they approached Elena, expressing their concerns and suspicions. They believed she was only interested in Valentin's fortune and not in him as a person. Nevertheless, Valentin stood firm in his decision, defending the love he felt for Elena and his choice to have her in his life. Although Maxi deeply wished for his grandfather's happiness, he also felt torn. On one hand, he saw the joy Elena brought to Valentin's life, on the other, he understood his parents' and uncle's concerns. He wanted to believe in the true love between his grandfather and Elena, but doubts lingered in his mind. As months passed, Valentin noticed the discomfort and tension his relationship with Elena caused within the family. He understood their concerns but remained convinced of the love he shared with Elena. One day, Valentin called Maxi for a serious conversation. Sitting in the living room, Valentin looked his grandson in the eye with a serious expression. He took a deep breath before starting to speak, feeling the weight of the words he was about to say. Maxi, boy, there's something I need to tell you. Something that might surprise everyone. His voice trembled slightly, but he continued firmly. I've decided to sell this house. Maxi's eyes widened in surprise at the revelation. He looked at his grandfather with a mix of perplexity and curiosity. Sell the house? Why, Grandpa? Valentin sighed, feeling the weight of the secret he had been carrying. I can't keep maintaining this house. I can't sustain the lifestyle we have here. I'm broke. Maxi was stunned by the revelation. He knew his grandfather's fortune was significant but had never imagined it was in jeopardy. He remained silent for a moment, processing Valentin's words. Then, with determination, he approached his grandfather and took his hands. Grandpa, no matter what happens, I'll be by your side. I'll help you with anything you need. Come live with me, and don't worry about money. Thank you, Maxi. I don't know how to thank you. A few days later, Maxi decided to address the situation directly. He posted a simple but impactful message in the family group chat. Valentin has decided to sell his house and move into my apartment because he no longer has any money. The news spread like wildfire, and soon all the family members gathered at Valentin's house, their faces showing shock and concern. Valentin's 5 children immediately surrounded him, demanding explanations. "Dad, what's going on? Why are you selling the house?" asked the eldest son. Valentin took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the words he was about to utter. "Children, I'm broke. All the money your mother left me is gone." There was a moment of tense silence, interrupted only by the muffled sounds of shocked gasps. Valentin's children stared at him, astonished, unable to believe what they were hearing. "How is that possible, Dad? How did this happen?" asked the youngest daughter. Valentin lowered his gaze, feeling the shame and sadness that overwhelmed him. "I wasn't careful with the money. I spent more than I should have, invested in things that didn't work out, and now I have nothing." The news hit the family like a bombshell, leaving them stunned and disoriented. They looked around the house, which they had always considered a symbol of security and stability, now about to be sold. The reality of the situation began to sink in, and they realized that the life they knew was about to change. Valentin took a deep breath, his expression reflecting the pain and frustration he felt. He looked at his children with a mix of sadness and indignation. "Now you're here, demanding your share of the house, but where were you when I needed you the most? When I was in the hospital, fighting to recover, only Maxi was by my side. None of you made an effort to reach out, to visit me, to even ask how I was. And now that I'm selling the house to survive, you all show up wanting your part." There was a moment of heavy silence, the truth of Valentin's words hanging in the air like a shadow over everyone present. Valentin's children lowered their gazes, feeling the weight of guilt. The eldest son was the first to break the silence, his voice full of remorse. "Dad, we made a mistake. We didn't realize how much you were suffering, how much you needed us. Please, forgive us." Valentin sighed, feeling the genuine emotion of his son and the love that still existed among them, despite past difficulties. Slowly nodding, he replied, "I forgive you, children, but it's important you understand that this house is all I have left now. I'm going to sell it to live with dignity, and I hope we can find a way to move forward together as a family." Valentin's children nodded, committing to supporting their father as best they could. They knew they had made mistakes but were determined to make amends this time. With heavy hearts, they bid Valentin farewell, promising to return soon to help him transition into a new phase of his life. As the family dispersed, Elena, who had observed the entire conversation from a distance, approached Valentin with eyes full of concern. "Valentin, what's happening? Why didn't you tell me?" Valentin sighed, feeling guilty for not sharing the truth with Elena earlier. "Elena, I didn't want you to worry. I was trying to protect you, to protect our relationship, but now it seems everything has gone wrong." Elena gently placed a hand on Valentin's face, looking at him with tenderness. "It's all right, Valentin. Only God knows what the future holds. We never know what tomorrow might bring." The next day, Valentin packed his belongings and left the house that had been his home for so many years. While carefully folding his clothes, a message from Elena arrived on his phone. He read it with a perplexed expression, his eyes scanning the words repeatedly. Elena was leaving for a sudden trip, citing the need to be with her parents. At that moment, Maxi entered the room and found his grandfather deep in thought. "Grandpa, are you okay?" Valentin sighed, feeling the weight of sadness in his heart. "I need to tell you something about Elena. I never even kissed her, and now she's telling me she's leaving without any explanation." Maxi's eyes widened in surprise at the revelation. "But Grandpa, why? You seemed so happy together." Valentin shook his head, his voice laden with pain. "I thought she was here for me, but now I see that all she wanted was my money. Realizing I've lost everything, she's chosen to leave. I just wanted someone who truly loved me." Maxi looked at his grandfather with compassion, feeling the sorrow emanating from him. He wanted to console him but knew that words would not be enough to heal the pain. "Grandpa, I'm so sorry you're going through this, but you must know you're not alone. I'll always be here for you, no matter what." Valentin then revealed that he had been deeply disturbed when Elena expressed her desire to be included in his will. Her words revealed her true intentions, confronting him with the painful reality of having been used. "Can you believe it, Maxi? She recently asked if I could include her in my will or make her the beneficiary of my life insurance. I should have suspected it earlier." However, Valentin decided to keep his emotions in check, responding with a simple yes to Elena's request. He didn't want to confront her at that moment but kept in mind what he had just discovered. "At the time, I didn't know what to say, so I agreed, saying I'd leave her a special inheritance." "Grandpa, you can't do that," Maxi exclaimed, a mix of indignation and concern in his voice. "She used you, Grandpa, you can't leave her anything." Valentin smiled slyly, a mischievous sparkle in his weary eyes. "Don't worry, boy. I have something much better planned for her." Maxi was perplexed by his grandfather's enigmatic response but decided to trust him. He knew Valentin had a plan, even if he didn't fully understand it. In the days that followed, Valentin left his luxurious house and moved into Maxi's modest apartment. The new routine was a challenge for both of them, but they soon found their rhythm. During the day, Valentin spent much of his time alone while Maxi was busy with work and studies. However, as soon as Maxi returned home, he devoted all his time and attention to his grandfather. Maxi did everything he could to make Valentin's life comfortable and pleasant. They shared meals, watched television, and talked about various topics. As the days passed and the new routine settled in, Valentin faced new challenges, particularly in the kitchen, as he was used to having a housekeeper prepare his meals. Now, he had to learn to fend for himself. Fortunately, his neighbor Clara soon became a constant presence in his life. Clara, a 22-year-old woman, lived next door with her mother. She was kind, helpful, and always willing to lend a hand. Over time, Clara began bringing Valentin breakfast and lunch, ensuring he didn't go hungry while he learned to manage in the kitchen. Additionally, Clara often offered her help with other household tasks, from cleaning to small repairs. Her warm presence and friendly smile made her a cherished figure in Valentin's life. Over time, their friendship deepened, and Valentin began to feel a growing affection for Clara. Her kindness and generosity reminded him of his grandson, Maxi, and in his heart, he began to think of Clara as his own granddaughter, a young woman he admired and wanted to protect. Valentin affectionately began calling her my granddaughter, sharing stories and advice with her, just as he did with Maxi. To Valentin, Clara was more than a neighbor, she was a source of comfort and joy in his otherwise lonely life. Clara's presence brought a new light to Valentin's life. He no longer felt as alone, as he now had the support of both Maxi and Clara's sincere friendship. As the days went by, Valentin's life took new directions. Suddenly, a relationship began to bloom between Maxi and Clara, nurtured by Valentin's wise words and gentle gestures, as he played Cupid for the two young lovers. Meanwhile, Elena remained absent, lost in her own world, leaving behind memories of a past that should never have happened. She never sought out Valentin again or sent word about how she was doing. As the years passed, age began to take its toll on Valentin, leaving visible marks on his body and spirit. Some illnesses began to emerge as unwelcome reminders of the end that could come at any moment. Finally, the time came when Valentin had to confront the inevitability of his health issues and be admitted to the hospital. There, he received constant visits from Maxi and Clara, who remained his greatest source of support. One day, while lying in his hospital bed, Valentin called Maxi for a private conversation. His weary eyes reflected the wisdom gained over the years but also a calm serenity about what lay ahead. "Maxi, boy, I feel that my journey in this world is coming to an end. I've lived a full life, filled with love, but now it's time for me to go." Maxi felt a lump in his throat as he heard his grandfather's words but knew it was time to face reality. With tears in his eyes, Maxi gently took Valentin's hand, unable to utter the words trapped in his throat. Valentin looked at his grandson with affection, offering words of comfort and wisdom. "Don't cry, boy. I'm ready to go. I've lived a life full of love and joy, and now it's time to say goodbye." With tears streaming down their faces, Maxi firmly held Valentin's hand, feeling the gravity of the moment. "No one knows the hour of departure, Grandpa," Maxi murmured through his sobs. Valentin smiled softly, his eyes reflecting a serenity that contrasted with his grandson's pain. "I know, boy, but I feel my time is near." Maxi struggled to contain his emotions, but Valentin's words weighed on his heart like a heavy stone. "Please, Grandpa, don't leave. I'm not ready to lose you." Valentin squeezed Maxi's hand affectionately, offering words of comfort and wisdom. "You can cry later, boy. I've had a happy life, I've been a happy father despite everything, and that's what really matters." They embraced, sharing a moment of tenderness and farewell. Valentin then asked Maxi for one last favor, his heart heavy with the weight of their impending parting. "Maxi, boy, I'd like you to gather the whole family on the day my will is read. Please, promise me you'll do that." Maxi nodded, unable to speak as the pain of loss overwhelmed him. "I promise, Grandpa. I'll do it for you." A few days later, Valentin passed away peacefully, leaving behind a void that not even time could fill. Maxi and Clara were devastated, lost in a sea of grief and longing. On the day of the will reading, Maxi gathered all the family members, including Elena, who appeared hastily upon learning that Valentin had left her something. They all gathered around the table, their somber expressions reflecting the gravity of the moment. Valentin's lawyer entered the room with a solemn demeanor, requesting everyone's attention before playing a video recorded by Valentin. With a ceremonial gesture, the lawyer turned on the video, and Valentin's image appeared on the screen. His voice resonated in the room with deep sincerity and emotion. "My dear children, grandchildren, and friends," Valentin began, his voice laden with feeling. "For years, I've kept secrets. I've stayed silent about my story, my desires, and my regrets." As the video progressed, Valentin opened his heart, revealing his internal struggles, his silent loneliness, and his constant yearning for connection and love. He expressed his gratitude toward Maxi and Clara, recognizing them as the true pillars of his support and happiness in his final years. "I've been fortunate to find love and compassion in the arms of Maxi and Clara," Valentin continued, his eyes shining with gratitude. "They have given me more than I could have ever hoped for, and for that, I will be eternally grateful." Valentin then shared the reasons behind his announcement of the house sale and his decision to leave behind material wealth. He wanted to test his children's true character, revealing that, despite their shortcomings, he still loved them deeply. "In truth, I never lost my savings. The money was always with me. I invented the house sale as an excuse to see who was truly by my side." After a pause, Valentin continued his confession with words that resonated in the room, enveloped in a charged silence. "I have spent the best years of my life with Maxi and Clara. They have taught me the true meaning of love, family, and generosity, and for that, I dedicate my heart, my gratitude, and my inheritance to them." As the video continued, surprising revelations emerged, altering the course of the inheritance and provoking a mix of emotions in the room. With remarkable clarity, Valentin detailed the division of his estate. Half of his $15 million would be given to Maxi, along with the house he cherished so much, a significant amount that, according to Valentin, Maxi had earned in full. 20% of the wealth would be donated to charitable institutions, while the remaining 30% would be divided among his children, ensuring that each received their fair share. However, the most shocking surprises were reserved for Clara and Elena. Clara, the young woman who had become his granddaughter at heart, would be the beneficiary of Valentin's life insurance policy, valued at $1 million. It was a gesture reflecting the love and gratitude he felt for her, securing her financial future. Meanwhile, Elena would receive the key to a safety deposit box at the bank, where Valentin had stored his most prized possessions. At first glance, it seemed like a modest gift, but it was said to hold unimaginable wealth. Elena smiled upon hearing her share of the inheritance, convinced that although she had received a smaller portion, it would be enough to ensure she would never have to work again. She eagerly anticipated discovering the treasures stored in the box, imagining the fortune she was about to inherit. However, when she opened the box at the bank, she was met with a bitter and unexpected surprise. Instead of sparkling jewels and promises of riches, there was only a cold coffee mug accompanied by a handwritten letter from Valentin. The words she found there cut her more deeply than any dagger ever could. "Dear Elena," the letter began, "for you, I leave this cold and bitter coffee, just as cold and bitter as the love you gave me." Elena felt her world crumble around her. Tears filled her eyes, and her heart shattered into 1,000 pieces at the cruel revelation from the man she had tried to manipulate for her own gain. Desolate and directionless, she left the bank, not knowing where to go or what to do. Sadness and regret weighed on her like an unbearable burden. Meanwhile, Maxi and Clara continued their lives in the house that had once belonged to Valentin, following in the footsteps of the man they had loved so deeply. They kept Valentin's memory alive, cherishing the precious moments they had shared with him and honoring the legacy of love and generosity he had left behind. For Maxi and Clara, the house was not just a place to live but a sanctuary of memories and affection, a constant reminder of the unconditional love Valentin had shown them. In the years following Valentin's passing, Maxi and Clara carried with them not only the memory of a beloved man but also his valuable lessons and values. As life presented new challenges, Maxi and Clara found strength and inspiration in Valentin's wise words and the example of unconditional love he had provided. Whenever they felt disheartened or alone, they remembered the lessons Valentin had treasured so deeply. "The most important thing in life," Valentin used to say, "is to have by your side the people you love and who love you. Everything else is just details." With Valentin's memory in their hearts, Maxi and Clara lived their lives with gratitude and joy, following the legacy of love and care he had begun. They embraced every moment with fervor, cherishing every smile, every hug, and every shared memory. Wherever they went, Maxi and Clara carried Valentin's spirit with them, spreading kindness and compassion wherever they went. And as time went on, they knew that as long as they had each other and Valentin's memory to guide them, they could face any challenge life threw their way. Thus, the story of love and care that Valentin had cultivated continued to thrive, illuminating the hearts of those fortunate enough to have known him. And as the sun set on the horizon, Maxi and Clara knew they would forever keep Valentin's memory alive in their hearts, always happy and grateful for everything he had done for them. I sincerely hope you've enjoyed this story. I'm certain the next video on your screen will also move you deeply.